What's up guys, I'm Brent with PrecisionLED.com, and here we have a 2012 Mini Cooper we're going to be performing an LED interior light installation on. This installation will be compatible with all years 2007 to 2014. Today we'll be installing on the front map, the rear dome, the vanity mirrors, the footwell, the doors, the trunk, the license plate, and the reverse lights. Today we're going to be installing a PrecisionLED Premium 3D style LED kit, which come with these three interior trim tools you see us using throughout the video. We have our fork-shaped wedge tool, our pointed wedge tool, and our serrated knife tool. So we're going to start by installing on the front map lights. We're going to be using the fork portion of our fork-shaped wedge tool to gain access to the bulb here. Now the clips in this housing are horizontal, so we're going to be prying outward and the clips should release. So we're just going to be taking the fork portion of the tool, we're going to be wedging it in between the lens and the center fixture of the housing here. And once you're wedged in there, you just want to pry outward towards the door and the clips should release. Now this is a very narrow space, so it's very difficult to just reach in and grasp the bulb. Now a trick in order to remove the bulb easier is just to take a small piece of tape. You're gonna make a U shape, and then we're just gonna wrap the tape around the bulb. And then we'll just take the tail end of the tape and then we'll yank the bulb out. So here we have the LED that we'll be installing. As I said before, this is a very narrow space to work with, so we're just going to be installing with a set of needle nose pliers. So now we'll just pop the bulb in there. Everything looks good. So now we'll just reinstall the casing here. We're just going to want to line it up accordingly. And once everything's lined up, just apply some pressure inward toward the center of the vehicle and the casing will lock into place. Now we'll be installing on the dome light. Now there are two metal pins that are holding this housing into place, and we're gonna actually be removing the entire housing rather than just the front plate here. So we're gonna be taking the crowbar portion of our fork-shaped wedge tool. We're just gonna be prying from the entire housing. You just want to work your way around the lens. And just for reference, the two pins that I was referring to are these ones right here. Now we've already gone ahead and swapped out the driver's side and the central bulbs to LED. And so now we could just swap out the passenger side here. So just on the rear, here's the power cable that's holding the bulb into place. So we'll just grab that connector here, just twist it counterclockwise and then just pull out. Let's just remove the bulb with our hands. And here we have the LED, so we'll just pop that in. Now these bulbs are non-polarity specific, so you can pop them in any orientation and they should work perfectly fine. So just reinstall that power cable here. Just line up the tabs. Once everything's seated flush, twist the power cable clockwise until it locks into place. Just test the bulb. Everything looks good. And now we could just reinstall the housing here. We're first just going to want to line up this switch side towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Once that's lined up, just apply some pressure until those two pins snap into place. Now we'll be installing on the vanity mirror lights. We're going to be using the flat portion of our serrated knife tool to gain access of the halogen bulb here. So there are three clips that are holding this lens into place. There's one at the top, there's one at the bottom, and there's one on the outside. So we're just going to be taking the flat portion of the tool. We're going to be prying from in between the lens and the entire vanity housing. Just like so. And we'll use the same tape trick that we used for the front map lights. We're going to be wrapping the tape around the halogen light. And then we'll just use the tail end of the tape to remove the bulb. And here we have the LED, so we'll just pop that in. Now this LED bulb, this one is polarity specific. So if you pop it in one way, and it doesn't work, flip it, take it out, flip it 180 degrees, and then just reinstall. And so now we could just pop the lens back on. We're first just gonna wanna line up this outer tab towards the door. Once that's lined up, just apply some pressure on the top and the bottom tabs until everything locks into place. So now I'll be installing on the footwell light. Now, just like the door insulation, there's a small tab right here towards the center of the vehicle. So now we're gonna just be taking our fork shaped wedge tool, the fork portion of the tool, we're gonna be prying from inside that tab. And once you have some separation from the lens and the fixture, just wanna pry the tab outward, just like so. And here we have the LED, so we'll just pop that in. Now, just so that we could minimize our hands in the shot, we're gonna be installing with a pair of needle nose pliers. And now we can just reinstall the lens. Again, we're just gonna wanna make sure that that tab right here is facing towards the center of the vehicle. But we're first just gonna wanna line up the outside of the vehicle towards the door. Once that's in place, just work your way down and lock the other clips into place. Now we'll be installing on the door light. Now if you look closely, there's a small indentation just right here. This is towards the rear of the door, or the rear of the vehicle. And so we're just gonna wanna be taking the pointed portion of our pointed wedge tool. We're gonna be prying from inside that indentation, and the lens should come loose. And this tab right here is what we're prying down in order to release the lens. And now we have access to the halogen bulb. So again, we're just going to be taking the pointed wedge tool, the pointed portion of it. We're going to be prying from the rear of the halogen bulb, just right here. We're just going to be prying downward. Just want to be careful not to touch the bulb. If it was on previously, it will be very hot. And here we have our LED, so we'll just pop that in. And once again, these bulbs, they're non-polarity specific, so feel free to pop them in any orientation and they should come on, as you can see there. So now we'll just reinstall the lens. We're first just going to want to install the switch side. Once that's in place, just go ahead, lock that last tab towards the rear of the door into place. Now we're installing on the trunk light. Now this insulation is virtually identical to the door insulation. So if you look closely, there's a small indentation on the plate here towards the rear of the vehicle. So we're just going to be taking the pointed portion of our tool here, and we're just going to be prying in to that indentation. And we're actually prying this tab right here downward in order to release the plate. Now we have access to the bulb. So now we're just going to be using the tool. We're going to be prying the bulb downward in order to release it. And here we have our LED, so we'll just pop that in. Everything looks good, so now we could just reinstall the plate here. Now we're first just going to want to line up the power clip towards the nose of the vehicle. And once that's in place, let's just lock this last tab into place. Now we'll be installing on the license plate lights. Now this casing here is held into place with a pressure clip. So we're going to be sliding this cover over in order to release that clip and in turn release the entire housing. We're going to be using the crowbar portion of our fork-shaped wedge tool in order to move the entire housing over. We're going to be prying from the right to the left, so towards the center of the vehicle. Now if you see here, there's a small indentation that we're going to be prying with the crowbar portion of the tool. So we're just going to go ahead, wedge the tool in there, and once you're in there, just go ahead and pry towards the center of the vehicle. And you will release the clip. This is the clip that I was referring to previously. And now we have access to the halogen bulb. So now we're just going to be taking the pointed portion of our pointed wedge tool. We're going to be prying the prong outward in order to release the halogen bulb. And here we have our LED bulb that we'll be installing, and we're going to be installing with a pair of needle nose pliers so that our hands aren't in the shot. So we're just going to go ahead, we're first just going to want to line it up from the stationary portion of the tab, which is towards the center of the vehicle. Once that's in place, let's just go ahead and lock in the opposite end tab. And now let's just go ahead and reinstall the faceplate. We're first just going to want to line up that tab that's towards the center of the vehicle. And once that's lined up, we can use the crowbar portion of our tool again, just to pry the housing inward to apply some pressure on that tab. Just like so, and the rest of the housing will fall into place. Here we are, we're inside of the bumper where the reverse housing is. It's both the reverse and the center brake light housing. And we're gonna be removing the rear of the housing in order to gain access to the bulbs. So before removing anything, we're just gonna want to disconnect this power cable here. There's a switch on top of the cable just right up here that you're just gonna wanna press down. And then you just wanna pull the cable outward, just like so. And now in order to remove the housing, there are 4 tabs that are holding it into place. So we're just gonna wanna pry these tabs downward and then just pull the housing outward. And you just wanna do the same thing to the opposite end. Just pry those tabs down and then pull outward. And then you just wanna pull the rest of the housing from underneath the vehicle. So here we have the reverse and the third brake light housing. These 2 outside bulbs are the reverse bulbs, and this center bulb is the third brake light. So we're just going to be swapping out the 2 outside reverse bulbs. So here's the LED that we're going to be installing. Let's first just remove the halogen bulb. And before we install this LED, I just want to note that for the best connection possible, you just want to make sure that these metal contact points here, that they're facing outward. And that's how you would get the best contact for the metal power connectors that are inside of these sockets. So we'll just go ahead, we'll pop these in. And now let's just go ahead and reinstall the housing. So we're just gonna bring it up from underneath the vehicle into the bumper. We're just gonna wanna line up the bulbs into the appropriate holes, just like so. Once everything's lined up, go ahead and slide the housing into place. And then you just want to apply some pressure on the tabs just to make sure everything locks into place. And lastly, don't forget to reconnect this power cable here. So we'll just slide that over.
And that's the end of the installation. If you have any questions or concerns, please email us at help@precisionled.com, or you can reach us online and submit a support ticket at www.precisionled.com/contact. Now, like we said before, please like or subscribe if you enjoyed the video or enjoyed the process for what we do. It really does help us out when we make the next one, knowing that there's people out there watching the videos. Have a good one.